Tag, fellow travelers! Welcome to the heart of Bavaria, where the beer flows freely as the spirit of adventure. Today, we're taking you on a journey through the vibrant streets of Munich, immersing ourselves in centuries of history, culture, and of course, the world-famous Oktoberfest. So grab your stein and buckle up, because this is going to be a trip that you won't want to miss. If you're just joining us, we're doing an Oktoberfest road trip. We hit the road in Zurich, Switzerland, then stopped outside of Zurich at Stein am Rhein. We continued on to Innsbruck, where we spent 38 hours. And now we're heading into Munich, where we'll go and tour the city and go to our very first Oktoberfest. Since this is a road trip, let's talk about parking. When we were telling people that we were going to do a road trip in Europe instead of taking the train, we received a lot of pushback from friends saying, "Don't do that. Parking is terrible, and you can never find a spot. And if you do, it's going to be really expensive." With just a little research, I found a parking garage in Munich that was a 13-minute walk from the main city attractions. It was just $3.50 an hour, and the garage was completely empty. Minutes later, we were at the Glockenspiel, which has a musical window that plays at 11 a.m., 12 p.m., and 5 p.m. every day. But our main event of the day was a bike tour through Mike's Bike Tours. The tour took us through the city to see vibrant buildings and provided a brief history of the buildings and the architecture. The tour was rain or shine, and luckily we came prepared because we experienced almost every type of weather within a 3-hour time frame. We had rain, sleet, hail, sunshine. It was 40 degrees to 70 degrees. It was bizarre, but it added to the experience. Beyond the weather, this was one of the best tours that we've ever taken. There was plenty of time to peek inside a few buildings and churches, including the Theatine Church, which was built in 1663 and is known for its ornate details. And then we continued on to the English Gardens. I had no idea that Munich had a garden that was this big and beautiful. It spreads over 21 acres, and it's one of the largest urban parks in the world. And in fact, it's bigger than the Central Park in New York City. An unexpected feature in this park is a Chinese beer garden. The tour stopped for lunch here, and we got to carb load on some delicious Bavarian food before we got on our bikes and finished up our tour at one last stop. A surf park. Munich, you're full of surprises. This spot is famous among surfers as being the largest, best, and most consistent city center location for river surfing. People have been surfing here for over 40 years. After wrapping up our bike tour, it was time to make our way across the city to check into our hotel, which was conveniently located just outside of the Oktoberfest grounds. And in case you're wondering, I booked the room about a year in advance, and it was really cute, which is surprising because when we were going up to our room, this is what the stairwell looked like, so I was a little bit concerned. But not only was our room super cute, but we also had a view of the Oktoberfest grounds. After a leisurely dinner at the Augustina Beer Hall, we finally took our first steps into Oktoberfest. But before we talk about what we did there, what actually is Oktoberfest? Well, in a nutshell, back in the 1810s, the Bavarian prince got married, and the people were so excited that they celebrated for 5 days straight. And then, the next year, the people celebrated again. And this time, they added in a state fair. And so that tradition has carried on through the years, and now it's a 2-week event that starts on the 3rd Saturday in September and goes through the first week in October. Due to movies and TV shows, I think there's a common misconception about what Oktoberfest is and what to expect. So I want to level set a little bit. Think of it like a state fair, but instead of having your prize-winning animals and vegetables and tents, instead you have tents that have a lot of beer. And I was surprised to find out that it's actually a family-friendly event, and it's not whatever this is. And speaking of family-friendly, let's talk about the rides. So there's all of these rides there, and you have to buy tickets for each individual ride. And there's traditional rides like bumper cars or like the Ferris wheel. But then there's also rides that you might not be familiar with, like the toboggan, which John is poorly demonstrating because you should be standing up on it. And then there's the devil's wheel, because who doesn't want to get thrown off a wheel in front of a bunch of people? And there's plenty more rides, but there's a lot to talk about, so let's move on to the tents. So the big thing about the tents is there's 14 large tents and there's 20 small tents. The largest of the tents can hold about 7,000 people inside the tent, but then there's also beer gardens outside of the tents. So basically it can hold a lot of people. Each tent is sponsored by a different Munich brewery, all serving their specific Oktoberfest beers. And each tent serves different food, has different decor, and they all have different vibes. So the only thing you can really do is go to each tent and see which one you like best. But be careful, it gets so busy, if you leave one tent, you might not have room in another. And what do you do in these tents? Well, you eat, and you drink, and you eat some more because the food is just so delicious. And you listen to music, and you just have a great time. Don't like beer? No problem. There's also wine tents that you can go to instead of beer. And when it becomes nighttime, that's when the party really kicks in and everyone starts singing and dancing. The music changes over to some of the more popular songs, and the musicians interact with the crowds a little bit more. Now you know what Oktoberfest is and what to expect, let's talk about some of the do's and don'ts. First, remember to hydrate, and I mean with water, not with beer. The Oktoberfest beers are higher in alcohol, usually around 6.5%, so it can catch up with you pretty quickly. Don't be afraid to ask for water, but be aware that it will be sparkling water in most of the tents. Next, make sure to have enough cash for food and drinks, because only cash is accepted in the tents. And don't forget to have change to give to the restroom attendants. And my last do is to get there early. Tents open up at 10 o'clock, and I know that seems like it's really early, but if you want to get a good space and not have to fight some of the crowds, it's best to get there as soon as you can. And now for the don'ts. While it's okay to wear traditional Bavarian attire, it's not okay to wear costumes. So just remember to save your Party City outfit for Halloween. There's plenty of shops in Munich and the surrounding areas where you can buy traditional attire. Next, don't stand on the benches during the day or you might get kicked out. At night, things start loosening up, and that's when you can start standing on the benches. And my last piece of advice, don't go to Munich just for Oktoberfest. The city has so much more to offer, and I believe you'll be pleasantly surprised by its beauty and its culture, just like I was. Well, that's it for Munich this time. I can guarantee we will be back. Our first Oktoberfest may be over, but our Oktoberfest road trip is not. Be sure to tune in next time as we go to Switzerland and see some of the most beautiful places we've ever seen.